Hi, my name's Andrew. Welcome to another episode of CYC Youth Chat. Today on the panel we've got Gabriella, Bossy, Mark and Michelle. Today's topic of discussion is lying, and in particular we want to move through some key topics. So first of all we want to discuss the issue of compulsive lying. We also then want to move through and discuss white lies, and then after that in the second half we really want to look at what the Bible has to offer in terms of lying and the practical lessons we can get out of it. So I'd like to kick it off with the first question. Bossy, why do you think people lie?
I think people lie because they want a certain truth, their sort of side of the story to be revealed. They don't want people to think negative of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They want to maintain their reputation among other people. That could be one reason.
And to escape out of sticky situations, and the common dog ate my homework kind of lie. Like it's always to get out of that situation.
Yeah, to cover up for some mistakes you've done, and like Bossy said, like I think lying is most common when you like trying to make yourself look better. Like if you don't do a certain thing, but the crowd around you does, you like launch a lie just to say like that you fit in with them kind of thing.
Michelle, yeah?
I think many people lie for very different reasons, and it depends on the kind of lie as well. So obviously it would be to get out of a sticky situation, or maybe to protect someone, or maybe you just don't want to tell the whole truth or the truth at all. So I think it is.
And it also can come down to, to laziness. We were talking before, like when your mum's like, oh, did you do this? Or did you do that? Like, yeah. Just to keep someone quiet when you don't actually.
I think like to a certain extent, it's not just to make yourself look good. It's also to make other people look worse or look bad. So like if you're at like enmity, and this is probably the worst kind of lie, like if you're at like enmity with someone else, then you like kind of like lie about them a little bit to your friends to make them look worse, like, and make them look like the villain in the situation kind of thing.
Yeah, so often like in social scenarios, it's a really good example. Eventually a lot of people, they get in the habit of just making up a story just to suit the situation. So this is compulsive lying. So what do you guys think about compulsive lying? How does one fall into sort of like that trap?
It's because one lie leads to another lie, which leads to another lie, and another lie to cover up that lie, and it becomes a compulsive thing. Like I remember me when I was a young kid, I used to be the most compulsive liar. I would lie about everything and anything, and to get nowhere just because. And it's just because you can't stop. You get into that habit, like anything. But lying is so easy to get into that habit. So easy to fall, because it's something that just slips out and you're like, oh, sorry.
It's just in the middle of conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so an interesting part of this is the whole issue of like white lies. And it's quite an interesting topic because, some people can say, oh, it's possible for a lie to be admirable. But is that actually possible? Is that a thing that we can have?
Or? Like to lie to protect their nation. They think it's very chivalrous and.
Yeah,
what do you mean by admirable lying? Like,
it's a concept that I struggle with, but it's one that people think because they could use it, say, to defend someone, or they could use a lie to do something which might have noble intentions.
I think I don't know about defending someone, but like for example, if we're like with the friends together, someone wants to go to eat at McDonald's or something, and someone wants to eat at Subway. Sometimes I'll lie and I'll say, yeah, I want to go to KFC or something, but deep down I want to go to the other place. I think that's like I'm lying for the other person. Is that what you mean? Like I think that's good.
Make them feel better kind of thing.
I
so
think
it's
that's
like,
good. Yeah.
well, they having like chicken, you're like at like an Asian store having bok choy or something like. I think that's like. Is that what you mean?
So say like you're in social scenario and like say someone comes up to you and they're like, what do you think of my dress or something? Or what do you think of my...
I think there's always a way of being honest. People don't like to think that, but there's always a way. There is, honestly.
And in that sense, is it a right to lie?
No, I think, like it says, there's a verse that says that your yeses be yeses and your noes be noes. Like it should be that way.
I agree.
But what if the dress looks really bad?
But you can be like, I know I'm really black, so when my mum or sister come and ask me, I'm like, no, take it off. But sometimes you could like, oh, you know what, I think the other dress looked a lot nicer when you was.
So even if you know, like, say the context, like, say, what if the person's like emotionally unstable? Like, do you still? I don't know.
Well, I think instead of lying at first, you should at least try and find a better way to say something, or at least something else that will be, I hate to say it, but a bit more nicer. So as Gabrielle was saying, instead of saying, no, the dress looks ugly on you, you say, oh, how about you try this dress on? I think this will really, like, you know, this colour really suits you or something like that.
It's a lot more slimming.
It's another way of getting yourself out of the situation, but without having to lie.
I think it also depends on like your relationship with that person. Like it's so easy to kind of just be so blunt, like Gabriella was saying, so blunt with your family. Like if my sister came to me and said, oh, like, does this dress make me look fat? You know, I might to be honest with her, but like, you know, like with other people, you have to be very wary, like Gabriella said. Like maybe say it nicely, like, I like the other dress on you.
Okay.
Because usually when girls try on dresses, it's like 6 of them. So you can always...
Exactly. There's always another one to comment on.
So what are you saying? Basically, find another aspect.
Find an honest way. Just say it. Like there's not like you don't always lying it's an easy way out, and we shouldn't as Christians. We're not taking the easy way out. It's everything. It's going to be difficult, but you have to.
I remember listening to someone say, a bishop say actually, he said that in some scenarios like this, if say you tell the truth, and the truth at the end of the day is always like, it's always right to say the truth, yeah? He said that at the end of the day, God may deal with it. Like if you're trying in your heart to be an honest person and you can't say the lie at all costs, then God might deal with the consequences. But what do you guys think of that? Is that sort of like testing God, or is that?
What do you mean?
Like if you do your best to uphold the truth, and you don't lie at all, then even if you say the truth and it hurts someone, God will deal with it, sort of thing. Is that a good way to?
That's a very tough.
Is that dangerous?
I think it's the way you say the truth. There's always like
exactly.
Tone says. Apparently, I heard it in someone say this, but Tone says 30% about what you're going to say. Like, oh no. Like if you're going to say it like that, obviously it's going to hurt someone. But if you say it in a gentle manner, using nicer words, less harsh language, things like that, it's obviously a lot easier to tell the truth. It's just the way you do it.
People still get cut, even when you're trying to be nice
But
and trying to help them and telling them the truth to help them.
Yeah,
People
there's
still
nothing
get
more
cut.
you can do then.
Yeah.
You've done what's right, and you can go to bed that night with
knowing that
you did that. But always after lying about something like that, you always have that back of thought mind.
That's true.
And you never know, someone might really appreciate your honesty later on, even despite like they may be feeling cut by it at that
but
time.
I think to a certain you have to have a duty of care towards people. So like if you know that there's a potential to hurt them, then maybe it's better to just be silent, like not have an opinion on a certain topic. If it's possible. I don't know, like.
You don't just feel like it's not for me to speak.
Something like that. Just like, deflect it.
Yeah, you don't always have to speak. Like, but we're talking in scenarios where it's just like you and the person or whatnot.
So another thing I want to ask you guys, has anyone ever, this is interesting, like have you got any stories where someone found you out, like you made a lie and then someone found out about it? Mark, have you got any?
I was like Gabriella when I was younger, so I was an extremely compulsive liar.
So tell us one.
There are many times. Like one time that like springs out to me is like when I was younger, I had a tutoring lesson that night. It was half an hour before the lesson. I thought, I haven't done my homework like for the 5th week in a row, and I'm definitely gonna get kicked out, sent home. My parents are gonna kill me. Like you make up these scenarios in your head when you're gonna die at the end. And I thought, okay, how do I get out of it? So I held my stomach really tightly and I started screaming out in pain. My mum came upstairs, like, what's wrong? I told her I'm dying. She takes me straight away to the doctors, who sees me in so much pain, says, you have to take this kid straight away to the emergency room. My dad ended up taking me, coming back from work, home early, taking me to Randwick Children's Hospital because I was still young. Like the whole way there, it's like an hour-and-a-half drive from my place. And I'm just screaming out in pain. And then once we got there, I just calmed down, tutoring's over, I was just relaxing, watching TV. We ended up coming home at like 4 a.m. in the morning because it's such a long line. A few days later, obviously, he found out and wanted to kill me. So, I think there's always, there's the consequences, of course, and you have to face the consequences with every
What was
lie
the feeling inside you? Like, was it complete guilt? Or
at the time, I felt very relieved, But like afterwards, like I said, once you face the consequences, you realize your mistakes, and I think that's how you learn to grow. And I think everyone, as a child, goes through that, sequence of compulsive lying. It's the easiest way to get out of sticky situations. But as you grow older, you learn from your mistakes, and I think that's the important thing.
Yeah, I remember being in so many situations where, or at school or something like that, and I'm like, Mum, look, I can't own up to this. I really can't. And Mum's like, you know what? It's going to be so hard to own up, even if you've lied previously, and to to cover up or whatever. But she's like, just go and do it. And you never know how much that person will appreciate your honesty. And not only that, even if they rage and whatever, at the end, you come up as a bigger person because, you know, it's a more admirable thing to do. To go and lie and cover up, it's very cowardly.
I have a actually question on that. Like, do you think if you've been dishonest to a lot of people and like about small things, like do you think it's important to go back to them and kind of be honest with them again?
Yeah, I mean, I
like
guess
with
like
about a certain thing.
the whole concept of like, I really always think about it. Whenever you go to the mass, for instance, you have to go. If you have anything against your brother, you have to make sure that you're right with your brother before you have communion, for instance. And so I think that concept applies for many things.
But if it's a long time in the past, like is it important? Like what's
like if something comes to your mind and you feel like it's sort of separating you from like full relationship with Christ, then I think the best thing to do is to, you know, go to that person and fix it up. And like the whole point of it, I think, is being right with God. So if we put being right with God before being right with man, then you won't fall into a lot of these.
Yeah, and even if you're trying to get out of a sticky situation, even God can see that. Like, it's so you may get temporarily out and you're like, oh, I'll confess later. Is that okay? Because you're like, oh yeah, I'll repent. What do you think? Because I feel like a lot of times when I used to lie, or I still lie obviously, I'm like, oh, it's right, I'll confess it.
I don't know, like it's hard. I mean, you actually raised an interesting point about the confession. Like, a lot of people, like, they go to confession, or I don't know, it might happen, but if you go to confession and you feel like you're just trying to sugarcoat things, is that like a lie as well, or is that?
I think it is a lie. It's like a white lie, because you know it's either that or that. It's
there's
not.
no grey area.
Yeah.
Like it's being lukewarm kind
And
of.
I think it happens to everyone. I think everyone at one point in their life has gone to confession and sugarcoated a lie. Like it's something that we've all done.
Just beating around the bush.
Yeah, beating around like, oh yeah, I did it. Like, oh yeah. Like,
Yeah, because
you
it says in
under exaggerate
Yeah.
how it happened.
It says like, let your yes be yes and your no be no. So I guess like the sugarcoating, maybe it doesn't. It's probably a lie. So remember, there was a good story about, you know, deflecting, especially these scenarios about lying. Gabriella, do you?
Oh yeah. There's actually, I have a story on this. Bruno once told me. So they were looking for Athanasius. Is it Athanasius? I think. Yeah. And they were out at sea, and you know, it was dark, and they couldn't see anything, but they could see another boat, and there was Athanasius actually in the boat. And the soldiers asked him, "Hey, have you seen Athanasius?" And he didn't lie. He was just like, "Oh no, but he's really close to here." And they kept running and looking, or not running, but sailing, and you know,
They kept going.
going. Yeah, he didn't really lie. He's very close to them, but.
Yeah, he deflected it. And I think that's a very good point because, you know, often you're facing these scenarios and you don't want to lie, but you have to find other methods to like be able to deal with it. So yeah, we've dealt with these two concepts, really, compulsive lying and white lying, very well this session. But I look forward to really discussing the Bible, stories in the Bible about lying in the next session, and we're also going to discuss practical lessons. But thanks for being with us, and we'll see you guys soon. Welcome back to the second part of CYC Youth Chat. As you know, today's topic, we've been heavily discussing the issue of lying. And we'd like to start sort of with the Bible stories about lying. In particular, there's a really nice story. There's a good story, a very relevant story. The one of Jacob and Esau. Bossy, I remember you telling me this before, but it's a really relevant topic.
Yeah, so the story is how Jacob deceived his father for the birthright. So he went to his father, as you know, he pretended to be Esau. He wanted the blessing of being the firstborn, for the blessing of the inheritance. So what we read later on is that what happened, so Jacob lied to his father, and then we read later on that Jacob himself was deceived by other people because of this. So, for example, when he went to his uncle Laban, he worked 7 years for his wife and then for Rachel. And then after 7 years, his uncle gave him Leah instead of Rachel. So he was deceived. Just as he deceived his father, Jacob himself was deceived. And then so he had to work another 7 years for his wife. And then even later on, when Jacob bore sons, his own sons, when they said to him, Joseph is dead. So they lied to him as well. So we see that sometimes that, as the saying goes, what goes around comes around.
And it's interesting as well because a lot of people comment on that story and they say, oh, he wasn't really cursed by God for doing this. But you can see that the curse is in the fact that this sin sort of spread through the line of his family. And it's something that obviously you don't want to have in your line. Because if everyone from you is lying, then you've essentially become the father of that lie. So
it's easy miss as well because like Jacob was so righteous, but like someone that wasn't so lucky with his kind of deception was Pharaoh. Like whenever I think of lying, I think back to the time of Pharaoh and Moses, when Moses kept coming to Pharaoh, let my people go, and then after every plague, Pharaoh would just get sick of him and be like, all right, you can go. And then just as they're about to leave, he'd stop them and make them work harder. And he kept doing that and did that time and time again. And then you just saw how much more punished he got, like as it kept going on, like as his lying and deceiving kept going. And then at the end, we all know the story. He lost all his men in the sea, and Moses escaped. So I think like Bossy said, what goes around comes around.
Yeah, and I think it's more like, yeah. Sorry, I was the point that I was gonna say.
yeah, sure. Have you got any stories on that? Or?
Well, obviously there are heaps of stories in the Bible about lying, but even things like some of the most basic ones, like when we read in Genesis about Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
And when they came to give the offering after Cain killed Abel, and he lied to God, and God saw that lie and punished him accordingly. And I think we need to realize how serious lying is, especially obviously these people in the Bible, we see them and they're very righteous people like Jacob and things like that, but we do need to realize the seriousness of lying, even if it is just a
It
simple
seems like
lie.
it's always punished. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those sins that God does like take a hand kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a verse that really, really encapsulates that. Like lying when you're in the practical sense, like in the actual scene, it seems like such an insignificant thing, but there's a verse that says it's an abomination to the Lord. Like that's such a strong word, and it's actually, I think that we don't really give it enough
Yeah, like
to how
St.
bad
Paul,
it is,
for instance, in his letters to Ephesians and Corinthians, he numbers lying among the worst sins like sexual immorality and even murder. And so he numbers it among those sins. And because we know the significance, like it says, the devil is the father of all lies. So, if we're lying ourselves, then we're essentially associating with the worst sin. But also another interesting thing is the fact that lying leads to more lying. What are some examples from the Bible where that happened? Like, I don't know, can you think of it? For me, I don't know, King David. I don't know, Bossy, what do you think?
Well, King David, as I think you were about to mention, he saw Bathsheba. So there was a beautiful woman, Bathsheba. So what he did was, he wanted to kill her husband, Uriah. So what he did was he put him in the front line of the battle to kill him. But what's particular about the story is that Uriah remained faithful. So David told him, look, stay at home with your wife tonight, all this stuff. But Uriah remained faithful, that he didn't sleep with his wife. He said, how can I be with my wife when the army today is in battle? So
he's honest, yeah.
he was honest, yeah. I'm not sure.
Dignified, yeah.
There's a lot of deception. Like I think, lying and deception. Like King David wasn't necessarily lying; it's more deception. But I think they're hand in hand. Yeah, like the devil himself. The first trick was a trick of deception. All of his tricks are deception. But that's exactly what he did to Adam and Eve, and it goes back again. God punishes, and it happens punishes deception. Happened to Adam and Eve and all of humanity when they were deceived by the devil, when they tried to cover it up. Happened to King David, who I believe lost that son that was meant to be born to Bathsheba. Lost that son. He was punished for his deception. So it's something God does.
The punishment is
get involved
really
with.
that story. In Acts, they talk of Sapphira, and when they lied about the money that they had from the church, at the early church, they actually died at the feet of Peter because of the lie. And so it just shows you the significance of even lying to people in authority, because at the end of the day, you're the people in authority, they're accountable for a lot of things. And if you're going up to them and you're lying to them, then it can make them, if you're feeding people with false information, it will also lead them to do wrong things as well.
Why has this is going off topic. Why has lying become such an easy thing for us to do? Even amongst everyone today, everyone is lying. Politicians are lying. Everyone. How has it become such an easy thing? I know. I'm sorry. I'm really going off topic.
That's all right. It's fine. I don't like.
I think because the more you do it, the more you become used to it, and the more like you're desensitized to it basically. So you start off saying one lie and you feel really guilty, but the more you keep lying and this slowly becomes, I guess you could say, part of you, then you become more desensitized. So it just becomes secondhand. But at least the good thing with us is being part of the body of Christ. Our sins are paid for. So when we go to confess and repent about, especially lying, we should strive not to do it again. Especially like as it says in Colossians, do not lie to each other, since you have taken off your old self with its practices. Our old self being pre-baptism, being with sin. So every time we confess, every time we repent, we should strive not to lie, because it's part of who we were and not who we are.
But Gabriella raises a very good point. Like if everyone's so used to lying, if everyone's lying, then like it becomes so much harder to trust people. Like it goes back to, I think, honest people see honesty in others, and like I think, like what Michelle said, it's important to just focus on yourselves. Like if everyone around me is lying, then like I'm gonna focus on being honest. And if they lie to me, I'm the one copying it, and it's a blessing on me, I think.
So coming from that, like from all these stories that we've heard today, what are the most practical things we can get out of it to stop ourselves from lying? What are the best things?
I think you have to catch yourself before you do it. Like it's a very important thing. Like to say, and it can be a really, really simple thing. Like no, be honest. Be honest. You have to always, and I think once you practice, like lying becomes a habit, honesty will also become a habit. Although lying is obviously a lot easier and honesty is a lot more difficult, but it's something that you have to kind of catch yourself before or in the act and try.
And maybe not even before. Like if you do happen to fall into a moment of weakness and you like, I don't know, say a lie, I think it's like just cut it out really quickly before it like expands, like all those little white lies that you said, like they follow on from each other.
Always try and think about, like, especially when you try and think about what you do, think about the consequences. So weigh up the consequences of lying, whether it be getting caught or the guilt that eats you up and things like that, to the consequences of telling the truth.
Look, I completely agree with you, but I feel like in a practical sense, it's not really easy to weigh up, like, okay, I'm having a conversation with you, but, weigh up the...
a lot of people do pre-think lies, so you have to think about, your intentions of lying, and then obviously if your intentions aren't that great, then obviously it would be better to tell the truth.
How about when you play games? You know the game Mafia?
Yeah.
So like, you have to lie in that game. So like.
But I feel like games, it's not really like.
I think everyone's prepared to lie to each other. No one's on the same side.
Yeah, that's true.
But wait, what do you want to say about like Mafia and stuff?
No, like I was a bit scared. So like, because there's a verse, I think Proverbs chapter 26, verse 19. So it says, "A fool is the man who deceives his neighbor and says, I was only joking." So I was a bit scared, like, surely games is okay, right? And that's what I was...
Yeah, I think games are okay, but it depends, like, the lines. Like, Mafia's alright, everyone's in setting, everyone knows that everyone's going to be lying to each other, but if it's something like a stupid April Fool's thing, like, obviously some April Fools are very lighthearted, but if it's one of those really serious ones that, it's going too far.
It depends. Yeah, it depends as well. Like what kind of games you're playing. Like if you're deceiving someone in a different way to win the game, then that's cheating. Like Bossy is an expert at cheating in Monopoly. Like, it's like, oh, did you roll a 6? Yeah, I rolled a 6. And when you really rolled like a 2 or something, or giving money to people behind their backs. I think that's like.
It takes one to know one.
That's a good point.
I think with that example, when you say, like, you lie to someone, then you say, oh, I'm only joking, it's another lie in itself. So it is that example of a lie leads to another lie. Because if I said something to someone and I can see that it offended them, I'm like, oh, no, I was only joking, then it's another lie.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Like, joking is just like you can be honest about it. Like if we're playing a game of bingo or something, and then I don't have it, and I yell out bingo, and then I say, no, I'm only joking. Like people get like really like down low when they think I've won, but like if I'm only joking, it's just like it depends on the situation.
I think it's a game, so that situation isn't really like. But if it's a serious situation, I feel like you're like, no, look, honestly, I meant it in this way. I didn't really mean to offend you. I'm sorry. There's always a way out of it. Like we were saying before, there's always an honest way to represent.
But that's saying I meant it in this way and putting it in the honest way instead of saying, oh no, I was joking. So
I like what you say, because too often I think we trivialize the lie. Like we make it smaller than it actually is. Like at the end of the day, if we just sat there and looked at what we did and just admitted it, and it'd be better. But like too often we're like, oh no, I was just joking, and that's just like a cop out sort of thing.
I think also like we spoke about confession earlier. Like I think priests like pick up on that. Like when you tell them, oh, I lied and stuff. Like sometimes, you get into a routine. Like I lie, I do this, I swear. Like you just keep going through that list that, like in confession, you go every time. They always like pinpoint lying. Like lying is, like they focus on it. They want, that's something you have to cut out of your life. Like it's something so like significant. Like it's such a significant sin because you know that it can be like a snowball effect. Like that's the danger with it.
No, I mean, very interesting topics. I mean,
There was a statistic actually that said that one person lies at least 3 times a day. Like it's that prominent in everyone's lives.
Yeah.
And it just becomes so. Do you feel like I feel like it's gotten a lot more than ever, but.
yeah, I feel like it has because like it's a lot easier to lie now, like especially with social media. Like you can just log on.
And you can
write
edit the
whatever you
way
want.
things are perceived and things like that. Like back in the day, you wouldn't have had the means to edit the way things come across and things like that. But now it's the means to do so is so much more like
Especially
easy
with things like
accessible.
social and peer pressure and always wanting to fit in, especially with youth and young people. People always feel the need that they need to be a part of that, and in most cases you do need to lie to be a part of it, whereas you need to realise that you don't. You need to be yourself and be honest with who you are, because that's the only way you'll be comfortable and be accepted.
It goes back to ourselves, I think. Like Michelle keeps hitting the nail on the head, like it's about us, if I'm an honest person, then people around me will like be honest with me, or like even if they're not honest with me, I see the honesty in them because I'm an honest person. I think it's focusing on myself first to fix the world around me. Like maybe it's not being fixed, but to me it is being fixed.
And I think it takes a lot of prayer as well. Like you have to pray to God, not only to be honest to God, but to be honest to everyone around you. Like it's something that takes a lot of prayer, like anything else in your spiritual life. But it really, really does. Because so say you come out of confession, you're like, okay, I'm not going to lie again. You're going to fall into a lie within the next 30 seconds, no doubt. But if you actually go to God and be like, look, this sin, I really, really want to shed it. Please help me. Please help. And if you're constant and persistent with that, I'm sure.
And one more practical application, like you asked earlier, like I think, we can deceive others, but we have to always remember and keep in our minds that we can't deceive God. So like God can see all. Like He knows. Like our tongue is such a danger to us. But like if we ask God to control it, because He's the one that sees it, like He's the one that understands and knows everything in our minds, then I think that's like everybody said, that's the first step.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's also very dangerous. I was thinking when you were talking, Mark. We tend to lie to ourselves as well to make things seem less significant. Like if I did this sin, oh no, you really didn't. It was just like it was more this. So I think you do that too as well, and I think that's also a very dangerous thing to fall into, that we also have to catch in that. Like,
that lie that the devil always tells you, like, oh, you're not worthy to, like, how can you stand up to pray to God? Like, He's not going to listen to you after you did this kind of sin, you know what I mean? Like, those are the lies that are told to us and we believe. Like, I think believing them is as bad as committing them.
Abuna Anthony was here, actually, he calls it a deceiving truth, because like the actual truth will set you free, but the devil always twists that truth to deceive you.
No, I like this point. I mean, I think some of the most important points we've talked about, like all of this discussion, especially being honest with yourself and being honest with God. I find them to be the most crucial elements when it comes to lying. So with that, I'd like to thank you guys for being with us. We really discussed everything to its entirety. I feel like it was a good discussion. And I'm looking forward to the next episode. Hopefully it'll be a good one. See you guys soon.